Hello, I'm Jane Turner from writewithjane.com, and I'm here today with Pjero Mardesic to talk about his wonderful new book, Captured Emotions, Poems from an Open Heart. And I am really curious about the side of himself that he's opened up through this book. So Pjero, thank you for being with us today, and just give me a little bit of background on where this book has come from. And I want to hear also more about your business soon as well.
Thanks very much, Jane. I truly appreciate your commitment and this opportunity. I'll jump straight into a little bit about the book. The book is called Captured Emotions, Poems from an Open Heart, as you mentioned. And one of the things where my business profession is cognitive behavioral therapy. And as some of you may know in the audience, or Jane, you might know yourself, cognitive behavioral therapy is about slowing down our cognitive functions and our cognitive patterns in our mind to then delve into what's going on in that moment so that we can work out why did I, lose my cool, or why did I get angry? Why did I snap at my kids? Or maybe why did I all of a sudden run to the cabinet to find some chocolate? So it's about slowing down the process of our thought patterns and obviously our cognitive cognitions. And when I was growing up, I had an addiction, an obsession with love stories and fantasy making and imagination, and that's for another time. But what I started to notice is I started to put words together because I loved poetry, and I don't know all the names of different styles of poetry, but I just love putting together short sentences that stimulated emotion because I was feeling them. So I started to write them, and for a long time, I really loved storytelling. I was actually terrible at comprehension, but I loved to create it myself. So I really love a lot of detail. And as I grew up, I didn't really process them a lot. Like I scribbled them out, but I didn't really do anything with it. And especially when I started to feel and understand the emotions behind love and women and relationships, that's when I started to process a lot of these little sentences and put them together in a factual way with detail. And after a few relationships, and then obviously like I got married, and then fast forward 30 years, and then all of a sudden going through like there's a breakup in my marriage and a separation, and a few of them, this actually sparked such emotions, obviously. And through that, I met people along the way, and as I met new people, I started to really understand my own feelings and emotions in such a way that I wanted to put them together. And poetry, especially love poetry, women's poetry, and just, as you read the book, you'll recognize scenarios that if you go to the beach and you recognize the warm, squishiness of the sand in your feet, like even that line I think is used in the book. But I really wanted to depict emotions that were caught in that moment. And I think I hope that you enjoy the book, like if you're watching. But that's where I really started to know that I was onto something. And I heard in a different I was on Twitter one day, and I just read something about, I wrote a book for someone because I was good at poetry and they appreciated it. And I thought to myself, I've got nearly 270 something poems that I've written out. I should really do something about this. And Jane, you and I have known each other for nearly 3-4 years now, and we've stayed in contact because I knew something special was going to come out of this friendship and relationship. And I just reached out to you and said, Jane, I've got a whole heap of poems. Like, what can we do with it? And then obviously the book came out of that, and yeah, I'm super excited.
It's a great thing for people to have, just to tap into their own emotions, isn't it? Because it's not uncommon for people to be blocked in that regard. And certainly I spent decades blocked in that regard. And, just opening up isn't all that easy necessarily. So finding a book like yours, and I'm so proud that you've actually pipped the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu, who also launched a poetry book, and yours came in at #1. But that's not to be gloating or anything, but it's really worthy acknowledgement of the experiences and the openness that you brought to the table, or I should say the keyboard, with this book. So tell us a little bit about the next book then, because, you know, you've been talking to me about it, but I'd love other people to hear a little bit more about the next book. And who's it written for? You'll have a particular reader in mind, I'm sure.
Okay, the book that I've been working on for probably nearly 5 or 6 years, and even when I put my whole background together. So the book is called Conquer the Uncomfortable, Unleash Your Potential. So the book is about the discomfort that I lived with for nearly 22 years, with an extreme addiction that I had, that I carried, that I created in my fictional reality since I was about 10, 12 years old, when I was striving to looking for these attention from my father, and, you know, lack of that being in my life because he was working so much and I didn't understand it. The book Conquer the Uncomfortable, Unleash Your Potential is truly written from a space of what did I have to go through? What did I unearth? What did I conquer and what did I champion to become, or to get me to at least where I am today? It's for the leadership space. It's for anyone that finds it challenging to face things that are uncomfortable. Now, why the leadership space? Part of that is because over the last 2 decades, I've worked in leadership roles in a multitude of industries, stemming from telecommunications to finance to real estate, to the automobile space, to coaching, to HR, to construction, like just, you know, like multiples of different areas where I was faced with extreme amounts of different adversities and struggles. And obviously, each time I was faced with one of these things, I was like, okay, I know what I've got to do. I can feel the discomfort. I've got to face it. I don't want to. It's going to be challenging, but there's also a new part of me that's going to, illuminate from this. And one of the contributing factors to just that is I learned from Dr. Daniel Amen, and some of you may know him. He's a brain health coach over in America, and he's a psychologist, and he works with addictions and ADD and ADHD and so forth. And I really look up to him, and I know that I'll meet him one day. Like, I know that for sure. I'll take the time to go to America. But he said that our brain cells, when they're damaged, they don't actually repair. The only way that you can create or produce a new brain cell is by actually trying something new. And that all comes down to discomfort. And from that moment, I put so many things together in my life in like a spark. And the second part of that was, by the time we're mid-30s, we have 95% of our life is already automated. And what I mean by automated, and I'm going to, share with you James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits. James says that once you create a habit, it means that it's become bodied. It is embodied, which means it no longer starts off as a thought to a feeling to an action. It actually becomes a feeling because we've already learned it to such a state we've embodied it. And in that moment, I put 2 and 2 together, that in order to create new brain cells to think differently, and once this level of uncomfortable or discomfort is already automated, it means that we've already jumped this step. Our life's already automated. So therefore, when we say something's uncomfortable, what actually happens is it's already become a physical feeling. It's no longer a thought. And I was like, straight onto it. I'm just like, okay, that means that to be able to conquer the uncomfortable, you've actually got to be working in the now, and you have to make somebody uncomfortable purposefully for them to actually understand how to process it differently. So the book is all for leadership, because that's the space that I mainly worked in. It's also about, the struggles that a lot of leaders have with addiction and or drugs, or neurologically. So it's not just drugs and alcohol. It's not just all the substance stuff. It's got a lot to do with the neurological self-sabotaging, the limiting belief systems, and they're all underlying. And that's why there's the unearth part of the book, because it's the first place is to unearth the truth behind the lies that we've been accompanying our lifestyle with. So I'm super excited, Jane, to get this one out. As you can tell, it's such a powerful book.
It really is. And such, you've spoken about James Clear and Atomic Habits, but you've put your own spin on this. You live and breathe this stuff, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, look, for now, what we want people to know is that they can get Captured Emotions, Poems from an Open Heart right away. And very soon they can get Conquer the Uncomfortable. And we'll keep them posted on that front.
Absolutely, they can.
Of course, if you want to catch up with Pjero, what's the best way? How should people find you?
The best way to contact me is you can contact me on Twitter at Pjero Mardesic. You can contact me on Instagram at Pjero Mardesic. The website, which is www.addictiontogrowth.com. You can catch me on LinkedIn at Pjero Mardesic, Exceptional Leadership, or you can just Google the Exceptionality Catalyst, and that should find me.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing all of that with us, and thank you for taking the time to put this down on the page.
Thank you very much, Jane. And I truly want to thank you. This relationship is the law of reciprocity. So to be able to lean in and say, hey, Jane, I think I've got something, and for us to hold on to that, it's also our own creation. So I wouldn't have been able to do it without you, Jane. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.